Fellow Falcoholics, what is up? Welcome to episode 224 of the Falcoholic Live. I'm your host, Kevin Knight, joined by two great guests. Appreciate your patience tonight as we got up and running. As you guys know, doing the show on the road, and lots of people are traveling this week, so it's always a little bit exciting to do live recordings during this period. But we're steadfast, we're resolute here. As you can see, we have Dave Choate with us at the Falcoholic himself. Dave, how you doing today?
Doing great. Living the dream.
Absolutely. It's a dream come true, recording Christmas week, talking about the Falcons, losing another game. But, we've got more to talk about than just losses. Also joining us for the first time, he is Jordan Watkins at Big 75 Fella, newest staff addition to the Falcoholic. Jordan, welcome, first of all, and how you doing tonight?
Well, thanks for having me. I'm doing pretty well. Excited to be on for the first time. I mean, again, like I always say, I talk about the Falcons all the time. Might as well keep doing it whenever I get a chance to.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I got to give these takes to somebody. I can't just say them to my cat all day.
There you go.
Yeah. So the cat gets very bored of the takes, and my wife is very supportive. But
it's big on the ground game, though. So yeah.
That's true. I've been teaching my cat to play defense because can't really catch, but has been very good at knocking the kibble out of the air. So eventually we're gonna get that going. But for now,
Sure, it's pretty good at change of direction.
Yeah. So those elite change of direction skills.
There we go.
That pretty fast on all fours too. That 4-point stance comes naturally to the cat. So, yeah, we'll save that for the cat defensive line pod coming this offseason, folks. But yeah, we got a lot to talk about tonight. Be a little bit of a quicker show because we're all busy traveling, but we wanted to bring you guys some Desmond Ridder takes, of course, from his first game. Obviously, didn't go great. But I don't think it was as bad as some have sort of made it out to be, and I think, there's a lot of overreactions, as is normal for this sort of thing. But we'll talk about that. I'll give these folks a chance to talk about the game as well. I was on the post-game show, for those who already listened to that, with Alan and Adnan, but I haven't heard these guys' takes either, so we'll start off with a quick, getting your guys' quick thoughts on the Saints game, which was pretty disappointing, but again, some good things were in there, stuffed in there, but I'll leave the floor open, and I have to, of course, let Dave go first, Jordan. He's the boss, so, I hope you'll understand.
I wasn't even going to say anything.
Yeah, so it's just, that's the rules here. But, Dave, what were your takeaways sort of from the Falcons' Week 15 loss to the Saints, which unfortunately was a sweep for New Orleans this season?
Yeah, my big takeaway is that sucked. I think that's probably the obvious one. But anytime you lose to the Saints, when we come into these games and folks are like, well, as long as they look good, or I want them to lose for draft position. You can't do that with the Saints. So it's a disappointing result. I think the biggest thing to me is like, and this is why I'm looking so forward to the 2023 offseason is, you change the quarterback, you make some tweaks on defense, but really at the end of the day, the only thing that's consistently working here is that ground game. And it's almost matchup proof. I mean, I want to see how they do against Baltimore, but they've done well against so many good run defenses to this point this year. I can't imagine the Ravens are going to be the team to stop them cold. So seeing that, continue to work, they can kind of impose their will on the ground, but no matter how well they're doing with that, they seem to be topping out at, 17 to 24 points. The passing game, nothing great to speak of, obviously, certainly not at all productive this week. And I know we'll talk a little bit more about Ritter later, but, you add in the defense sort of having maybe 3 really, really terrible series or drives per game, just enough to put it out of reach for a bad offense, and then otherwise doing a pretty good job. So it was more of the same, and I hate to say that because it was an exciting matchup with Ritter in there. It was good to see, Troy Anderson getting a start and a little bit more work there, but it felt very familiar. Unfortunately, they lost in the way they have been losing all season. And it's hard to be as excited as we should be about how great this rushing attack is. We haven't seen one like this for so long in Atlanta. Just knowing that, everything else is falling by the wayside and making it difficult to celebrate that and difficult for that to carry the team. So, we got 3 more games to go. I'm still interested to see what kind of improvement they have, but we really have to wait for the offseason to get more out of this team. And I think the loss to the Saints unfortunately reinforced that.
Yeah, no, that all good points there. It was a frustratingly familiar experience, but some good things, some things that you'd like to see better. And I know everyone hyped Desmond Ritter's first start into just unreasonable levels, of course, so that was going to bring some people back down to earth, and we'll get to that. But yeah, I did want to give Jordan a chance to weigh in. What did you think about the game overall, Jordan, and how you feel after unfortunately getting swept by the Saints this season?
Well, I felt better until you reminded me that we got swept by the Saints again this season. But I think overall, what makes a loss like this so frustrating, and there've been a couple of losses like this, where there is something, I guess I kind of look at it the opposite way. The Falcons have shown the run game can carry them very far. And at times when they really need to lean on it, they don't do it. And I'm sure, that might sound crazy when you rush for around 200 yards in a game. But, even as I wrote after the game, there were certain 3rd and 5 situations. I'm thinking, okay, let's run the ball here, see what happens. You get some yards. It might be a 4th and 2. That's something manageable for a rookie quarterback to deal with. And instead they try to pass it, and then now you're in 4th and 5, or if you get sacked or whatever the case may be, you have to punt it. So I thought that just kind of was interesting to me. And also I thought how they came out the gate. Obviously, usually in the NFL or college football, your first 15, 20-ish plays or so are scripted. And how many just shot balls did we see right away for Desmond Ridder, which it's not that I have an issue throwing with them early on, but you're going to do it. Let's do play action, something intermediate, just get them in a rhythm where, again, obviously the Saints are coming into that game knowing and thinking you're going to rely on that run game. So, okay, you might catch them off guard in that regard, but I didn't think, throwing just some of those 9 routes, those go balls that we did early on was exactly the right way to get the rookie quarterback involved in the game.
Yeah, it was certainly a strategy. Clearly, the coaching staff has complete confidence in Desmond Ridder to just go bombs away. I didn't love it. I agree with what you said there. I think we wanted to see it work, but it didn't work, and then you put yourself in a hole really quickly with those. And Patterson wasn't open either on that first play. I think against some teams it would make more sense to do it, but the Saints, for everything that they are this year, which is not a very good football team, the pass defense is good. Like they're a top 10 pass defense. So trying to really test the strength of your opponent with a rookie in his first game, with a not necessarily star-studded receiving group right now, with Kyle Pitts not there, I didn't like it either. So I echo what you said there. I just think it put you in a hole, and it led to Ritter starting like what was like 0 for 5 or 0 for 7 or something like that, because it was the first like 3 or 4 throws were just had to be hero balls, because it was the second down run got mostly stuffed up, and then he had to try to complete a 3rd and long, and it just then the defense of course gave up 2 straight touchdowns, so that was not the offense's fault, that was not Desmond Ritter's fault or Arthur Smith's fault, and that changed things after that point. But I agree with you that we have such a good run game. It's like it would be nice to just lean on it at an appropriate time to start the game. And it's funny, you mentioned it. It's like, oh yeah, well, they had 200 yards, so clearly they used it. It's like, well, they should use it more. Like I don't care that they had 30 carries and 200 yards. Like they should have run it more. And maybe that's obviously a sort of side effect of the passing game being so inconsistent. But until it gets consistent, that's the way this team has to win games, is by just pounding the rock. And thankfully, we had what was just an outstanding performance from rookie Tyler Allgeier, who sort of showed, he's capable of being that guy who gets 20 carries and just burns a defense to the ground over the course of a game, and that was really exciting. Jordan, what did you think about Tyler Allgeier's sort of breakout game here?
Yeah, well, I got to see him a good bit being out here on the West Coast when he was at BYU, and the one thing that always popped off to me or anyone who talked about him, BYU fan, analyst, you name it, he's a hard dude to bring down. And you saw it, again, it was on full display, especially I think it was a 3rd and 16. We ran a draw, He breaks maybe 1 or 2 tackles and then boom, picks up the first down. And you just felt like there were a couple of runs there where he really made a couple of people miss, broke a couple of tackles that really got the momentum just changing. And again, I think the biggest thing when an offensive line sees that from a running back, that just gets them more juice and they're ready to go and flow more too. So no, I mean, I thought when they drafted Tyler Allgeier that was a great pick. I'm happy that I haven't been wrong on it. I don't think I will be. But again, it just goes back to show remember, there have been times this year where they've had a 3-headed weapon. I know Caleb Huntley, unfortunately, is looks like he's done for the year, but he had a 3-headed weapon in the backfield at running back. And again, sorry, I know you're just asking me about Tyler, but I just want to go back to this point again of go with what works. Like, you don't have to try to outsmart people sometimes. It's okay. I mean, even I think back to the Commanders game a few weeks ago. The Falcons had 3 timeouts inside the 10-yard line. The run game got you down there. And actually, I think Tyler Allgeier was a big part of what got you down there too.
Yeah.
Keep using it. And I think that kind of showed its head again this game, where it was those big third down situations. Go ahead and use them. They've already shown, the Saints have shown they can't stop him. He was he converted 6 of the Falcons' 9 third down conversions in the game. Go ahead, just go ahead and use them. But no, I'm really excited for Allgeier and what he has going for these next few games, and also the entirety of his career.
Yeah, it's really cool to see. I know I can't remember if it was Nate Tice or somebody else mentioned that. He reminded them he looks like a young Earl Campbell. He's just sort of coming into his own, but just impossible to tackle. And we've been waiting for that sort of back since Michael Turner left. We haven't really had a guy like that. Obviously, Michael Turner also had that incredible speed. And that's really the only thing I think Allgeier lacks is he's not slow, but he doesn't have the home run speed, because we saw that on his long run. He broke out, he showed that short area quickness to get out there and certainly got a lot of yardage, but he's not necessarily the home run hitter. That's really, I think, the only weakness he's shown this year is that he's not going to break off a 75-yard run. But in terms of his contact balance, it looks otherworldly. This is an outstanding contact balance, great running style, patient, good footwork. And the receiving, we didn't really see a lot of it at BYU, but he's been one of their most reliable third down options, even with Cordarrelle Patterson here, who we know is a great receiver. So, I think he's showing that this guy could do we need to plan for life after Cordarrelle Patterson? Because maybe Tyler Allgeier is that guy, going forward. I know Bijan Robinson has been a popular topic, and I'm sure we'll talk about that. I promise some draft takes by the end of the show. But, Tyler Allgeier, it's you got this guy in the building. The Saints aren't as good against the run as they have been in years past, but this is still a top 20 run defense. It's not awful. And he's going off for 8.7 yards per carry, hundreds of yards and all this. So it's, maybe not as big of an issue as some people thought, with Patterson appearing to slow down a little bit late in the season again. So that's something to monitor going forward. But Dave, what did you think about the run game and Tyler Allgeier's great day?
It was a lot of fun. I love when a player that you're rooting for. Allgeier was somebody who I was hoping would have a big role right at the beginning of the year. I predicted that he'd lead the team in rushing, and then he was 3rd on the depth chart, and I was like, well, this isn't looking great. And then, Damian Williams gets hurt 3 weeks in, he's starting to roll. So it's really fantastic to see him coming into his own. And I think obviously, the scheme is set up to help these guys succeed. The blocking has been tremendous, but Allgeier really seems to have that well-rounded game and that physicality that they're looking for. So I do think, I don't know if he'll ever be the clear-cut number 1 guy, but I think he's your 1A and whoever else is your 1B. If it's Cordarrelle Patterson, if it's, somebody else, I can't imagine them going out in April and trying to draft a top back in the first round and kind of burning another pick on an offensive skill position player when you have so many other needs. If you're ever going to get to the point where this team resembles the best Titans team, you have maybe the ground game that you're already looking for, but at some point we also need a defense. So trust that Allgeier can be this guy, because I think he can be. And a game like that is really evidence of just how good he can be. And to your guys' point, with the ground game, it's fair to say that, yeah, maybe they should be running more. I think that at some point they do have to have a capable passing attack to balance this out. But until then, I think it was at the Browns game. It was the Browns game, right, where they ran it like a ridiculous number of times in a row. It didn't matter. No one could stop them. Like that mindset was so great to see, and it does feel like we haven't seen that in recent weeks. We've seen, I want to give this to the quarterback. I want this passing attack to succeed, even though the evidence is it's not going to. So I support what you guys are saying. Like over the next 3 weeks, like, you want to give Ritter something to do, but if they're running well and nothing else is working, just keep running.
Yeah, and part of me wonders, I'm not accusing them of tanking or anything, but I wonder if the point was more to evaluate Ritter and really test him and do this sort of stuff. Like if maybe like trying to win is not the biggest goal. Maybe the biggest goal now is try to win while evaluating these young players, so that it's, it hasn't really changed, but instead of being like let's go all out and maximize every advantage we have to win, it's now let's still try to win as much as possible, but it's more important to our long-term success to put a lot on Ritter's plate and see how he handles it, and get Troy Anderson as many reps as possible, get these young players as many reps as possible. We don't know that. They'll never say what they're doing, but I think you could certainly make a case that the play calling was not maybe the most, I don't know, what's a good word for it? Just not the most winning play calling. I mean, we saw the early deep shots. We saw multiple trick plays involving Felipe Franks. And, man, we're just going to have to take Felipe Franks away. Arthur Smith has lost his Franks privileges at this point. So,
look, to quote Arthur Smith, both on the winning play calling and taking away Felipe Franks, that's comical. It's comical. So
it is. Yeah.
You can't take away Felipe Franks. That is it's like a dog with his chew toy. I know that's a terrible analogy, but it's true. You can't take it away.
Yeah, and the other part of this was, I talked a lot about it on the post game, because it was right after, of course, it happened, and I hated how it ended. That on that potential game-winning drive, the ball's fumbled by Drake London after a great catch, and that was Ritter's best throw of the day, I thought, on 4th and 5, and he looked really locked in, and this is something that he did in college. Like, he would sometimes be a little shaky to start a game, but when it got down to crunch time at the end, he would just become absolutely lethal. I mean, he had so many comeback wins and just great games late, and I feel like we got a little bit robbed of an opportunity for him to deliver a game-winning drive that it wouldn't have erased his struggles from earlier in the game, but we'd be seeing a completely different tune. It would be like, well, he didn't have amazing stats, but he won the game at the end, or at least scored the touchdown. And then if the defense blew it, of course, that's entirely possible that would have happened, but it wouldn't have been his fault. So that to me, I want to give Ritter credit for putting together that drive, and I think playing some of his best football on the day there, and just it was so sad and frustrating to see Drake London dropped the ball, and I'm not going to be overly upset with Drake London for that. I mean, he's also a rookie trying to basically carry the entire passing game. I mean, he was essentially the passing game. At least he was targeted, 9 times of their 23 attempts. So it's, I don't want to put too much on these guys and really dog them out. It's just, man, what a frustrating end to what I thought was an opportunity for Ritter to sort of rise above. But the fact that I think he was doing that, after that 4th and 5 catch and before the fumble, I was like, oh wow, like this is gonna happen. Like I think we're at least gonna tie this up. Like this is coming together. And then 2 seconds later, I was feeling differently. But in that moment, I was positive about Desmond Ridder. So I don't want to punish him necessarily for the mistake of Drake London there. But what do you guys think about that final drive? I thought, and this sort of will let us transition into our talk more about Ritter specifically, and Jordan, I'll let you get the first crack at it. What do you think about that last drive? Do you feel sort of similarly that was maybe his best drive of the game, and what do you think about that?
I think it definitely had the potential to be, and I think you made a good point too about how he started off the game, because I think you look earlier, it was either the first or second possession. He rolled out to the right, put a throw on the money onto the sideline to Michael Pruitt. It goes right through his hands. They showed it on the replay. And I mean, just think about this. If you're a young guy making your first start in a crazy environment, as we all know the Superdome can be, you make a throw like that on one of your first possessions, how much more calm are you in this game, in this environment? But I think to your point, though, the conversation and the discourse around Desmond Ridder looks a whole lot different if the Falcons go down to score on that drive, whether it's a touchdown to take the lead or at least tie it, right? So I thought that, when it was time for it, he was locked in, he was ready to go. But again, like I said, I think there were certain situations where, of course, he made his rookie mistakes. Like I'm not trying to absolve him of everything. There were times I know there was one, it was like a comeback route on the left sideline to Zacchaeus that he kind of hitched on it. And then when he finally did throw it, the defender was able to make a break on it. Of course, there were about 2 or 3 interceptable passes he could have thrown. Yeah. But that being included, I thought there were times, again, the play calling didn't really help him out. I mean, you had receivers in the vicinity of like 5 yards of each other multiple times. And then, of course, the lack of separation from receivers at times as well. But you saw when it mattered. And even with all that being said, here he comes down the field, putting the Falcons in a position to possibly take a game where, that would have put him, I believe, tied for first place in the NFC South had they pulled that off. So, again, I just think that for everything that went wrong, the fact that he was still, when it mattered, could try to put something together was really impressive to me.
Yeah, I agree with that. And Dave, I want to give you a chance to weigh in on that last drive too.
Yeah, I just echo that, I think it's difficult not to make maybe too much of like one play, but when you're on 4th and 5, you're a rookie in a difficult environment, you have had some errant throws on the day, and you're being asked to go in there and throw a strike and keep it moving. And he did that, as you said, Kevin. I think that might have been his best throw of the day. That feels like something you can build on. And I don't know if it's, Ritter's going to be an above average starting quarterback or even a starting quarterback at all from here on out. But that kind of play, some of the other big throws he made, a couple of his runs, felt like we were watching somebody figuring some stuff out. And so that last drive, to me, was really a good sign for him that he's able to perform under pressure and get the job done. Even if there were, again, a couple of missed throws in the lead up on that drive that got them to 4th and 5, if he can start putting this together with some consistency, and I don't know if that happens this week in Baltimore, given the environment, given the cold, but if he's got the time and the will and they're willing to invest in him, it feels like there's something there.
Yeah. And Jordan, did you have something you wanted to add?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just
It's
had
okay.
2 things I wanted to note. I had the YouTube comments up, so I wanted to make 2 quick things. So first off, to Dave's first point, yes, completion percentage does not equal accuracy. I think we all remember this game. It was a few years ago in Carolina. Matt Ryan throws a deep ball to Julio Jones. He's wide open. Julio dropped it for a touchdown. Do we remember that one? Well, guess what? Matt Ryan's completion percentage goes down on that, but he couldn't have thrown that any better. So there are certain things that also go into accuracy and completion percentage. They don't go hand in hand. Also, can we please not bring up Brock Purdy when we're trying to talk about Desmond Ridder? The situations are night and day different. Okay. Like now obviously the 49ers, they play about 30 minutes down the road from where I live. And so I see a good bit of them every single weekend. And that's apples to oranges. Like let's please not even go there. Don't do that.
Yeah, it's Purdy's probably working in the most favorable quarterback situation in the NFL, and I would say Ritter is working in probably a below average. Without Kyle Pitts, it's definitely a below average situation. It's not the worst. I think the strong running game, the offensive line is fine, and he does have Drake London, but without Kyle Pitts, it's not a great situation. And as good as I think Arthur Smith is, I think putting him on the level of Kyle Shanahan at this point is premature. So I would say Kyle Shanahan, one of, if not the best offensive coordinator in football at this point. So, Arthur Smith I like, and I think he has the potential to prove that he belongs in that upper echelon conversation. But at this time, I mean, I mean, this is why every quarterback who goes to San Francisco looks good. I mean, for God's sake, Nick Mullins set like almost a rookie record for most yards in his first like 10 games or 16 starts. Nick Mullins, who's a guy that's barely a journeyman quarterback, it's extremely quarterback friendly. They ask the quarterback to do very little, and like Brock Purdy has played great, like in that system. Like he deserves his props. He's definitely proven that he's an NFL quarterback, and he's no longer Mr. Irrelevant. He's Mr. Very, very relevant for the NFC playoff picture. But just look at San Francisco. Every single quarterback that plays there looks good. Every single one. It does not matter. Nick Mullins looked good. Jimmy Garoppolo looks great. I mean, how have those guys looked outside of San Francisco?
And then also for the person commenting, Trey Lance also got them a must-win game down the stretch last year to make it the playoffs. So he's had his moments where he looked good too. Also, do we not remember they traded for this running back? I heard he was kind of good because we saw this team before they got him. They only put up 14 points against our defense, but I heard that running back they got, he kind of makes a big difference too on how an offense looks. Just what I heard.
Yeah, Debo, obviously, he's hurt now, but, Debo Samuel's amazing. Brandon Ayuk is clearly a very good receiver. Like, it's a very quarterback-friendly system, and I give props to Kyle Shanahan. He gets all of his quarterbacks basically ready to go. So props to him for that. But, yeah, it's a different situation on a much better team with the best defense in football supporting it also. Like, I mean, that's the other side.
I always had that working theory, and of course, we didn't see enough of Trey Lance this year to say anything about this because I think he can be special. But I've always felt like Kyle Shanahan really doesn't get up in the morning unless he's got a mediocre to bad quarterback that he's propping up to make look good. Because, obviously he had Matt Ryan, maybe Lance ends up being that guy, but the high water mark for him at quarterback before that was Matt Schaub. So this is a man who knows his way around making subpar guy look pretty decent. So yeah, we're not quite there with Arthur Smith yet as Dave Ragone as passing game coordinators, I think.
Yeah.
Still mad at him though.
Yeah. Very much so. Very much so. Okay, we got a $5 donation from Corey. What's up, Corey? He says, if Ritter continues to play at this level over the rest of the season, and our draft pick remains at 7th overall, with Bryce Young falling to potentially 3rd overall, would you consider trading first-round picks to get him? That's a good draft takes question. I mean, Bryce Young is the only one I would consider trading for. I think he's the one that's clearly sort of the QB1 top guy. If Houston doesn't draft him, they're just fools. Like I think there's a very low chance that he gets past Houston at 1. This is why Houston is in this situation to begin with. Like, they were hoping that this would happen, and it has happened. So, unless they just mess up and take the wrong quarterback, I really don't think this is a realistic scenario where he falls. If Young is there at 3, I would consider making a trade. But honestly, I think that's very unlikely, and I wouldn't consider trading for any of the other quarterbacks. Like, if they were there at 7, or say the Falcons do. I don't really want to entertain it, but say the Falcons do lose out the rest of the way, which would be miserable for me until draft season hit, and then it would be fun. But at this point, like, if they were to lose out, it's not going to take much for them to get to 3. It would take a lot for them to get to 2, but if they lose out, they only need the Rams and these other teams to win 1 game, and because of the strength of schedule tiebreaker being so poor for the Falcons, they're like the 2nd lowest strength of schedule in the NFL or something like that. Like, it doesn't take a lot for them to jump up the standings to a top pick. But ultimately, I think they'll finish right around where they are now, 7th, 8th, something like that. And it's probably not a realistic thing, but yeah, I mean, Jordan, I don't know how brushed up you are on your draft takes so far, but do you have an opinion about Bryce Young?
Oh, I think Bryce Young is special. Now, that being said, I think that even if you bring in Bryce Young, there are a lot of things on this team that need to be addressed before you do a quarterback. And because I think that you can bring in a talented quarterback, but if the situation around him isn't what it needs to be, you're still in trouble. I mean, look at what Trevor Lawrence has looked like last year versus what he's looked like the last couple of weeks so far in this season. And I mean, that's just one example of many. I mean, even with, I know everyone wanted, a lot of people, not everyone, a lot of people wanted Justin Fields drafted here. And You see, like, even at first, well, he's struggling. Well, also, if we want to talk about not the most ideal weapons on the outside in Atlanta, it's the same situation in Chicago. They really had to switch up their offense to make him more of a runner before they started looking like, okay, this might be something with him. So I just think that there's so much more that needs to be done. I mean, we still desperately need, I think Arnold Ebiketie on the outside can really be something as a pass rusher. They still need to find a way to get another dynamic one, whether they want to do that in free agency. Obviously, we know about all the cap space that they have, or in the draft. Also, need to get another corner to pair up with AJ Terrell, so they want to do that early. But I just think that with a lot of the holes that this team has, going for a quarterback first wouldn't be it. And then also I see Robert, he asked me a question. I mean, San Francisco, they already traded their future away. Look at what they gave
Lance,
up. Yeah, look what they gave up for Trey Lance, and also look what they gave up to get bring in Christian McCaffrey. So they're going for it. They know this is their window. So yeah, that just answer that question.
Yeah, absolutely. Dave, did you have a Bryce Young opinion or anything on that?
I mean, the only thing that scares me a little bit is the height, and I know that can be overplayed for sure. But I think he is incredibly gifted, and he is the one guy that you would consider going for. Like, if Houston does something really stupid, which we can't rule out because it is Houston, it's possible. Then you do have to, I think, seriously think about, what position you're in, how committed you are to Ritter, and what it would take to go get Young. But I do think that ultimately that's probably not where the Falcons are going to go. So the hope is that Young just doesn't end up over here in the NFC, and especially in the NFC South. And right now it looks like we're going to avoid that. So I'm just hoping, Saints, no first round pick, Tampa Bay, probably, a later pick because of the playoffs. So you're just hoping that Carolina gets the worst quarterback in the crop, whoever that ends up being.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good call. And I don't think it's going to shake out well for them to get a quarterback in this draft. But I think there's a non-zero chance that they go for Lamar Jackson if he becomes available. We've already seen them try to take a swing on a quarterback. It was definitely not the right quarterback to take a swing on. I'd feel much better about them swinging on Lamar Jackson. But I think they'll be willing to be aggressive for quarterback. I just don't think it's necessarily going to be in the draft. I think it's more likely to be a veteran. I mean, honestly, if you want my opinion, it's going to be Ryan Tannehill. Because I think he's getting cut. So I don't think they're going to have to pay a lot for him or trade anything for him. But I think if they're looking for someone to compete with Desmond Ridder or to give Ritter more time, we could be looking at Ryan Tannehill. And to be, Ryan Tannehill is what he is, but he and Arthur Smith made magic happen multiple seasons. So, get ready for that being a possibility if they aren't in position to draft anyone and they're not necessarily 100% sold on Ritter. A reunion with Tannehill for temporarily, like, they're not going to give him a long-term deal or anything like that. They might give him a 2-year contract, probably paying him $15-20 million per, which is a pittance for the Falcons with their current cap situation. They could make that happen easily. But I know a lot of people don't want to hear that, but if you remember, Ryan Tannehill looked like a top 8 quarterback with Arthur Smith. Like, that, they just got each other, and as soon as Arthur Smith left, that stopped working. So as sort of milquetoast as that would feel, that could be a way for this team to sort of have another bridge option while Ritter continues to develop, or if they're sort of treading water waiting for somebody else to come available or to do something in the draft. I know that won't be a popular take, but considering that the price probably won't be very high and they're not really going to have to trade anything for him because I think he'll just be cut, prepare yourself, I guess, for that being a potential option. But yeah, on Ritter, I mean, we've talked about a lot of it. I mean, overall, my takeaways, I didn't have time to rewatch the whole game, but I thought his accuracy on the whole was pretty good. I think the receivers really struggled in this game. Drake London had a good game except for his fumble. I thought he played well and was getting open. But everybody else really struggled to separate. It was like the worst game for Olamide Zaccheaus of the season. Just couldn't get any separation. Kadero Hodge wasn't really playing, which I found strange. And Michael Pruitt was okay, but he dropped that pass. And They're really hurting without Kyle Pitts. It just lets teams sort of sell out to stop Drake London, and that didn't really help them. Like, I mean, Drake London was still able to make plays. And you've seen how special he is. He's just great he's fearless over the middle. He makes tough catches. He just needs to learn to put two hands on the ball when he's going for those extra yards. That's all. But I thought that the overall accuracy was fine. I thought that Ritter was a little too jumpy in the pocket. I think he needed to sort of relax a little bit and not just start bailing. I don't think he ran particularly well. I think he chose to run too late several times, and his rushing, he was okay at it. Like, I mean, obviously you saw his athleticism. He's really fast. He can erase some bad plays with the scrambling. But he didn't look comfortable doing it yet, and that's sort of what I thought from his college days would happen early on. Like, he's not Marcus Mariota. He's not the natural scrambler, the natural runner. He's got the athleticism. I mean, he's got one of the fastest 40 times for a quarterback in the NFL right now. I think Lamar Jackson might be the only one who's faster. So, I mean, he's really fast. He's got that athleticism, but was never a high-volume runner, was never a guy that was gonna go to that naturally. So I think they're gonna have to coach that up out of him, but I liked his willingness to put the ball in tight windows. We didn't really see Mariota do that. He didn't take a lot of chances with the football, which can be good or bad. I like Ritter's willingness to sort of rip it, and we saw him almost throw 3 picks, 4 picks, whatever. Hopefully that will get tamped down a bit. It's a really tough place to play on the road. I tried to warn people. I tried to warn you about this game that, you know, he might not play well. Very few rookie quarterbacks go into New Orleans and win their first game. I think only like 2 or 3 ever have done it in the NFL history. They showed the graphic. A bunch of really famous quarterbacks lost their first game in New Orleans. So it's a tough place to play. It was a bad situation for him. I really wish they would have gotten him in right before the bye so he had more time with the receivers. He had an easier situation at home to play in. But, you know, I think Ritter is resilient enough. I mean, I really appreciated also his press conference and stuff this week, and we could talk about that too. I don't want to give all the Ritter takes before you guys get a chance, but I thought it was mostly fine. I don't think it didn't alarm me in any way, thinking like, oh, this guy can't cut it. It wasn't like inspiring necessarily, but I think it was about what I thought on the lower end of the spectrum, like within the realm of reasonable takes. I was like, yeah, it's not something that alarmed me. It's not something that's moving the needle. I still think Ritter has a good chance to be an NFL starter. I don't know if he's going to be a high-end starter or like a Garoppolo starter or, you know, whatever. But I think he showed enough that I think that I'm still very much like, if he improves over the final 3 games, you know, it wouldn't surprise me at all. Like, he's the type of guy I think that will get better in every start. Will he be good enough to quiet down the quarterback conversation? That I don't know. But yeah, Dave, I'll let you get your crack in here. What did you sort of think about his performance on the whole? I know it was quite all over the place, but what were your sort of overall takeaways?
Yeah, you know, it's certainly, I was hoping for a little bit more from him. I'll be honest. That's that's extremely greedy, and that comes from a place of being spoiled, I think, by quarterback play really over most of the last 2 decades. You know, you went from Chris Chandler, who was still pretty solid at the end of his career, to Michael Vick, who was amazing, you know, if inconsistent at times, to Matt Ryan, and then even to Marcus Mariota, who, you know, if he was not at all consistent as a passer, he was an interesting player, and he made things happen, mainly with his legs. So, you know, going to Ritter and seeing that first start, which was much anticipated, and, you know, seeing some of the misses, seeing under 100 yards, like, even though the number doesn't really matter. Yeah, it was kind of a tough first effort. But I think, you know, it comes back to, I think the question for him really is just how much can he prove and how much can he show improvement over the last few weeks? Because I think from like an intangibles perspective, you know, the poise he had in that game, the way he's looking at this, the way the coaches and the players, I know Chris Lindstrom talked quite a bit about how he operated the offense, and that it was impressive that he did so the way he did. Those are all pluses for him. So, you know, if this team is seriously considering starting him next year, which feels like at least a possibility given where they're likely to pick, you know, where they want to put their money, then I think it was a good enough first start in that it showed them, what he can work on and what he can do well. And so it's just on him over the last 3 weeks of the season to improve at the little things and the big things. And so, if he goes out there against Baltimore and, he throws a couple passes, fewer that are maybe interceptable or maybe a little bit reckless, if he looks a little bit more decisive as a runner and as a passer, that progress probably matters a lot. So, I think all told, it wasn't like a catastrophic effort. Like you said, it didn't convince me that this guy can't play. I was wrong about him. You should never be like that after one game anyways, I know. But I think, solid enough, a foundation. And even if, the house is a little bit, leaning to the side at the moment, he's got a chance to put things down and get it on track. So, we'll see where he goes from here. I wasn't overwhelmed. I wasn't underwhelmed. I was just whelmed.
Yeah, that's a good take. I like that. Yeah, Jordan, what did you sort of think about his overall performance in this one?
Well, yeah, I guess first off, one of the things is one of the most historic buildings in the world is a Leaning Tower. So that, sometimes there are good things that come with that. But no, I think, when you look, obviously, if you look at the numbers, it's, he did terrible. But when I just think about the game itself, he looked like a rookie. He looked like a rookie making his first start in the NFL. And honestly, when you're a quarterback, and especially a rookie quarterback in the NFL, one of my big takeaways is, okay, when you make those throws that either are intercepted, should have been intercepted, or you missed this one, you missed that one. Obviously, earlier on, I talked about some of the misses that he did make. How do you bounce back from that? And again, we talked about how that last drive looked like it was going to come along, and maybe how that could have, how things could have happened if the fumble doesn't happen, right? But also, I feel like that's part of the reason why, and I'm one of these people included, I would love to see him earlier in the year. I thought that after the Carolina game, the second one, because it was a Thursday night game, you have 10 days before you have your next game. That would have been one of the better times to do it. It's not a full bye week, but it's kind of like a mini one. So you kind of get them up to speed. You also are, I believe you were at home in Chicago after that game. So you're at home, much better place to play, much better environment to really, be welcome into your first start. And then you go from there. Where, maybe some of those misreads and just some of that lack of comfortability in that big NFL environment, maybe that's already out the window. Because as we've seen, because the big thing for me was, going into the year, did I think it was going to be the case the Falcons were going to be in the middle of a division race? No, I honestly didn't. But they were there. And so my thing was, okay, you know what? Now it's time to really go all in. If obviously we know what we see with Marcus is not working out. And then a lot of the reasons why in certain games has been because of what Marcus has or hasn't done. So you drafted this guy third round. Let's see what he has. And then again, if it doesn't work out, well, guess what? At the end of the day, you're right where your expectations were on the year. If it works out, congratulations, you might have a quarterback of the future. And also you have a little bit better understanding of who he is because he's had time to work out some of those rookie mistakes. Because guess what? He's going to make more again this coming week. He's going to make more next week. He's going to make more the final week in Tampa Bay. So even then, it's still like you might not know what you have going into this offseason with all the free agents and the draft coming up. Because in my opinion, I think they just waited a little too long.
No, I agree. I think it's tough. It was a tough place for them, and I blame the Bucs for being so shitty. Also, like it's their fault, really. And it's hard to put too much blame on the coaching staff for sticking with Mariota when they thought, because the Thursday night game was really the beginning of the end for Mariota. Like after that game, I was officially like, okay, we need to see Ritter. So I was very similar to your timeline there. But before that, it was like, Mariota's been up and down, but this team is still winning, as much as they're losing or close to it. We're in the thick of the playoff race. Maybe I understand not changing up the quarterback at this point. But then, so then they win the Bears game, and it's like, okay, well, maybe they made the right call sticking with Mariota. And then it was just disastrous after that Bears game. Like it was 4 or 5 games of poor play by Mariota in a row. And we finally get Ritter after the bye. Which maybe that was just their long-term plan. If they were like, okay, if we're not winning the division, we're not really a serious playoff contender, we're going to go to Ritter after the bye. And like I'm glad they made the change now, but it does sort of stunt his growth and not give you as much ability to evaluate him this year. But I think it also shows a lot of trust in Ritter that they didn't feel like they had to get him on the field as soon as possible. And I guess what I mean by that is if they were like, well, we don't have really much faith at all in this guy, so we're planning to draft a quarterback next year unless Ritter proves himself. If that was their thought, you think they would have gotten him on the field as soon as possible because then they would have really wanted him to show something or they were planning to go in a different direction. So I guess you could either take it as they actually do have a lot of faith in him and do want to have confidence in him potentially being their starter next year, and they don't actually need to see more than a few games to feel confident in that. Or you could say, like, well, they don't have any confidence in him at all, and this is just, seeing how good of a backup he can be. I guess it depends on how you sort of shake out on your opinion of how they handle the situation, but I choose to believe that they actually have a lot of faith in them because that's what they've said, and I think that it's consistent with how they've played it. They didn't feel like they had to force him onto the field. They've talked about his preparedness, and Arthur Smith went out of his way to say, like, Ritter has earned the starting job. We're not just doing it because Mariota's playing badly. It's Ritter. It has earned it. It's a performance-based decision. So I'm hopeful that he will bounce back. And he has another tough game coming up against the Ravens defense. Now, the Ravens haven't been great against the pass. I think they're 21st in net yards per attempt and 25th in passing yardage. So much easier, softer pass defense. But the Falcons are really going to have to take advantage of that because they are the number 3 rush defense, the Ravens. They allow just 3.8 yards per carry, and they're 3rd in overall rushing yardage allowed. So the Falcons are probably going to have to lean more on the passing game in this one. And this is the perfect opportunity for Ritter to show growth against probably a little bit easier defense. And, will Marcus Peters play? He didn't practice, so that's potentially a big loss for them. It could be sort of an injury-limited opponent here. This could be a good opportunity for Ritter to show that he is an upgrade over Mariota in the passing game, and they will need him to be that if they want to have a chance to beat the Ravens, because I don't think you can depend on the rushing attack getting you 200 yards in this one. I mean, I think you can definitely think that they're going to be able to hold their own and probably still get you, 4 to 4.5 yards per carry or so, but probably not the 5 to 6 yards per carry they were generating against poor run defenses like the Saints. So,
well, one thing to note with that too up front, I know Calais Campbell didn't practice today either. So now, of course, if he's not there,
yeah, that's
your optimism for the run game looks a lot different. So that's something to monitor too going into Thursday and of course Friday.
That's a good point. Yeah, I didn't remember that he missed today as well. And we didn't talk about the defense at all because I think we all know the defense is put together with paper mache and duct tape. And this defense is unfortunately a little bit of a sad state. It's really sort of impressive to me how few points they've allowed. Over the past several games. You look at how this game started against the Saints and you're like, oh, well, we're about to give up 35. We might have a 50-burger dropped on us. But they don't. They tighten up. They get it settled. They only allow 300. They only allow 350 yards, which is not great, but it's not that bad. But over the past, 5 games, it's 25 points against the Panthers, not great. 24 points against the Bears, not great, but they won. Just 19 points to the Commanders, just 19 points to the Steelers, and now just 21 to the Saints. That's not bad in terms of scoring. Now, on a play-by-play basis, the defense has been much more frustrating to watch. But, we know that unit is not ready for prime time. This is a defense that is, like I said, put together with paper mache and duct tape. They're really just trying to get by with what they have. And I think DPs deserve some props for getting them making as many stops as they have. But it's really been on the offense. I think the last 5 games they've lost, 6 games they've lost, whatever, these were all games that the defense kept very, very winnable. The score was low enough. Nothing was out of hand. I mean, I feel like in most of these games, the Falcons had an opportunity at the end to win, and they just did not get it done. So I think this is where we need to see Desmond Ridder really get back on the horse. You had a tough debut. Now you have a tough it may be even tougher test going into Baltimore, who are 9-5 and really pushing for the division title, an AFC contender, maybe a little bit injured, but still very dangerous opponent. Let's see it. Like, now you gotta do it again. Like, get back out there and prove against a tough opponent. And this is where, he's gonna have to show. Like, he's not getting an easy start. Like, in New Orleans, in Baltimore, your first 2 games, like, I mean, it doesn't get much harder than that. So it's a great opportunity for Ritter to get a baptism by fire. I hope he rises to the challenge in this one and really shows us something this week, because that'll go a long way into quieting the very, very just strangely erratic. Well, I guess strange is probably too strong a word. I mean, this is football Twitter and football fandom in general. I think sort of the erratic nature of the discourse is part of the fun. But I hope he's able to sort of bounce back and quiet down the, he's a bust talk after his second game, because clearly we can make strong determinations about a player's future based off their first 2 games. But yeah, guys, I know Dave and Jordan, we were trying to keep it on the shorter end. It is 9 or 10 o'clock or whatever it is here. So we're going to go ahead and get close to wrapping up, but I do want to give you guys a chance to get off any final takes. Jordan, he is at Big75Fella on Twitter. Like I said, the newest member of the Falcoholic staff. Jordan, any final thoughts, anything you'd like to plug?
Yeah, so I know obviously at last I checked too, Lamar Jackson also didn't practice again today, so that'll be something to monitor. I think when we talk about the defense, I'll make this quick. Alvin Kamara going into last week had really struggled on the ground, and early in the game it seemed like that was going to be the case again. But I thought what was somewhat frustrating is as the game went on, he started breaking those 6-yard runs, 7-yard runs, 8-yard runs, and that really made it tough, right? Once he got rolling. But also, I really would love to see Dean Pease or whomever help out the defensive line a little bit more. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say who is great, who isn't great. I'm just going to say, obviously, we know the sack numbers are not there. But a lot of times with what I see the Falcons doing is they just do straight 4-man rushes. Now, I don't have a problem with rushing forward, but I think, as we all know, like, obviously we trust Grady. Grady can win a one-on-one almost any given time he wants. Like I said, Arnold Ebiketie getting there, but for the most part, outside of that, who do you really trust on or rely on to win a one-on-one pass rush on a consistent basis at this moment? Now, what we have seen though is when you make those advantages. So again, like the play I highlighted this week, they put 3 D linemen, including Rashaan Evans, to the left side. So you had 3-on-3, and they ran the stunt perfectly. Like, do some more of that. Help, like, if the talent isn't just there to win it one-on-one, help your guys out some more where they can get on edges. They make picks happen. Make the O-line think a little bit more to make it work. Because obviously, again, if Lamar Jackson doesn't play, Huntley is still a mobile guy, but of course he's no Lamar Jackson. But I still see the Falcons, they still do a somewhat good enough job most of the time of rushing in discipline, even when they go in stunts. So now help them out, get on edges a little bit more where they can still be in their responsibilities. And that also helps out the secondary. And we all know they need help as well. So I would just love to see some of the play calling up front, couple more games, couple more stunts, just to help everybody out.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I'd like to see more aggressiveness called because, like you said, the talent's not quite there, neither in the secondary or the front 7. So it's like we got to dazzle them with fluff or something like that because we can't just depend on the talent to win. And they've done, I think, a better job of that in some games. Like week 1 against the Saints, I thought they did a perfect job of that. I don't know why they've gone away from that defensive strategy since. I mean, I know they don't necessarily have the secondary, the cornerback room, they used to have. Casey Hayward's gone. I think they don't trust the other guy opposite Terrell as much. But man, it's painful watching that pass rush some down. So hopefully they'll get that figured out. And I suspect strongly that most of the free agent dollars that we're going to have in the salary cap this offseason will go to the defensive line, edge rush group, because they need 2 more guys, I think, like 2+ starters. And if you could get a blue chip guy, that's great. You might not be able to, but even if you could just get 2+ starters, like even if I feel like even if they had Vincent Taylor, or Eddie Goldman, if one of those guys had ended up playing, I feel like this defensive line would be significantly better. But without either of those guys and the injuries they've already suffered there, Taquan Graham goes down too. It's just Abdullah Anderson, big thumbs up, buddy. Like, you have, I think, earned your spot on this team going forward. But everybody else, man, Timmy Horn got snaps at edge in this game. That killed my soul. That just, man, I can't get behind that. But that's the state of this defensive line. So appreciate you, Jordan. Thanks for your time tonight. I'm sure we'll get many more takes from you over the coming weeks and months. Also with us tonight, the boss man, Dave Choate at the Falcoholic himself. Dave, anything you'd like to add? Anything you'd like to plug?
No, just I would plug your guys' work. I know, Kevin, you're right on the cusp of this being full-blown draft season, so you'll want to watch out for all of Kevin's scouting reports, mock drafts, and so forth. I'm sure he's got one in the chamber in case they lose and Tampa Bay wins on Saturday. I want to say Sunday. I keep doing that. And definitely read Jordan on the lines. I think it's been great to have your expertise on that and really a closer look at what's happening in the trenches, even if some of it's maybe a little bit depressing. So, and let's hope for the best on Saturday. I would love to see, just a complete reversal in this team coming out and beating a very good Baltimore team in frigid temperatures. So, cross your fingers and let's see what happens.
Absolutely. Yeah. No complaints there. I love the draft pick, and at the end of the season, if they lost out, I'd probably be happy. But right now, I just want them to win some damn games. Okay. Like, I'm tired of losing. Let's just win the games, as many as you can, and we'll sort the draft pick out later. We'll go from there. But again, thanks so much to Jordan and Dave for joining me tonight, guys. I'm Kevin Knight at Falcoholic Kevin. You can follow me there on the Twitters. Thanks to everyone who's donated to the Senior Bowl Fund. If you'd like to do so offline, for those of you listening to the podcast audio, you can do so at streamlabs.com/Falcoholic/tip, or you can go to my Twitter page and donate on Venmo. Again, all that's going to be going towards our Senior Bowl travel. We're bringing you all those great shows and live takes and video clips that I know you guys are just thirsting for at the start of draft season. If you're watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe. Really appreciate that. I feel like we hit 5,000 subs like a couple weeks ago, and we're already at 5,100. So keep on stacking those up. Thanks to everyone for following us there. If you're listening to the podcast, leave us that 5-star review if you enjoyed the show. Getting I think close. We have a 4.9, so somebody didn't leave a 5-star review, but it's okay. 4.9 is not bad. I think there's like 75 or 80 reviews now. So thanks to everyone for doing that. Really helps us out. So thanks guys so much. We will see you on Saturday, not Sunday, as Dave mentioned, for the Falcons versus Ravens post-game show immediately following that game. I may end up having to travel that day, so it's possible that show could be delayed or get messed up. But as of now, it should go off as scheduled. But we'll see. I'll keep you guys posted if anything changes there. But again, thanks so much, guys. For Jordan, for Dave, and for myself, enjoy your evening. We will see you next time on the Falcoholic Live.